Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stampin' AF. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada. This week I wanted to show you a fun new product. It's one that I've used a couple of times already. I'm kind of obsessed with like 3 things in the catalog. I'll have it all in no time, but I'm like obsessed with these ones. So let me flip this around and we'll get our craft on. So the product that I am talking about is the Tailor-made tags. They are an amazing die set in the new annual catalog. There are 10 dies, 8 labels, and 2 that are the reinforcements. Now, the reinforcement on this one in particular is what I'm talking about. So I made a sample. I actually did a whole video of this earlier, and when it came down to editing, the color, like the true tone on my phone, was just messing things up. So I thought, okay, I'm going to re-record this, and I'm going to do it a little bit different this time. I did use a stamp in the background, but I don't feel like it's necessary. So let's skip that. I want to show you how I made these tags, and this is actually a bit of a case the caddy, if you will. So in the front of the new annual catalog, and if you need a copy of this and you live in Canada, I would be happy to send you one if you're not already working with a demonstrator. You can send me an email at stampedaf@gmail.com, and I would be happy to get one off to you. So I want to do something like this. Obviously, I don't have room for that many colors on a card base, so we're just going to choose a couple of colors. And on my earlier sample, I used Flirty Flamingo, Pale Papaya, Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, Pool Party, and Highland Heather. I like all of them, but I think the Pool Party, I might add in a little bit of the Bermuda Bay as well, just to kind of dial it up a little bit. But if you are curious about these dies, they don't really stand out. It's very easy to miss them in the catalog. So they're within the die section. It's not a bundle. And if you want to see them in action, it's on page 95. Oh, do you see that? I almost flipped right to the page. So there they are, and I will try to remember to link to a video or two that I've used these tags on, but I am obsessed with them. So I've gone ahead and I have die cut all of my tags and the reinforcements just so that we don't take forever to do this. Truth be told, this video is late, and partially that is because I have been isolating for 2 weeks after being a close contact, and I went for my test and thank goodness it's negative, but I have been sleeping like there's just not enough sleep. So in Canada, it's a long weekend and I slept it all away and left too much for the holiday Monday. And I mean, I've gotten a lot done, but then I went to edit the first version of this video and it was not up to my standards. So that is why this is later than usual. I just need a scrap of paper to be able to color these. I'm going to leave this in here so you can see what I've done. So for each color, we need the light and dark of the blends, and we'll start with the dark. And I'm just going to show you the Flirty Flamingo, and then I'll speed through the others. So you want to go maybe a third of the way up the tag, and then come in with your light, and you want to go over that seam basically. And I'm starting to find that a lot of my blends are dying all at the same time. Do you have that problem too? Okay, so we'll come in with a little bit of the dark, go over it again. Now the blends do lighten as they dry, so if you're not happy with it at the beginning, let it sit for a couple minutes. Let it kind of work its way into the paper. Okay, so I will do the rest of them on screen, but I'm going to speed through that because the other reason I want to make this fast is I'm currently watching the NHL playoffs and my team is playing, so it's intermission right now. So with Highland Heather, I did find that it was a little bit darker than I wanted it to be, so you can always come in with your color lifter and lighten that top bit. Now you can see with the Pool Party, having that little bit of Bermuda Bay at the bottom really dialed it up. For this one, I would love to use Purple Posy, but of course it is retired now, so we don't have that anymore. So the next step is the part that I keep seeing where they're upside down. So this is the reinforcement. And the way that it's supposed to go on the tag is like this, so that you have that flat edge on the flat edge. Now I keep seeing them like this. So I want to show you the right way to do it. And initially I had thought about coloring the reinforcements or using the matching cardstock for the reinforcement, but it just looked so much cleaner having that little bit of white at the white of the top of the tag. Must have a little bit of glue in there still. And I'm going to skip the crinkled seam binding ribbon because it was a little distracting. So I haven't decided if I'm going to use anything yet or if I will use some baker's twine. If this ever happens to you, just take your pick tool. It's just a little bit of glue that's dried in the lid. A snot dot, as one of my team members so lovingly calls them. Okay, so now there is going to be quite a bit of glue that comes out. And you don't need much to adhere these. And if you would prefer to not have to deal with the liquid glue, you can use the adhesive sheets. That was lucky. And then it will just be like a sticker. Now, the reason I like liquid glue is because it gives you a couple of seconds of wiggle room. So if I don't get that right where it needs to be the first try, I've got a little bit of time to move it. So I'll zoom through this and I'll be right back. As you can see, putting those little reinforcements is the most tedious part of this job. And the next thing I want to do is just use some dimensionals to put on the back. And when I had done my original video, I used the foam adhesive sheets because I like my popped up pieces to not dip anywhere. But the problem with that is that I want these to overlap a little bit, perhaps not quite as much as they did on the sample, but a little bit, just so that they're not going straight up and down and, you know, like boring. Now, the other thing I wanted to show that may not be as necessary if we're using baker's twine, but if you are using ribbon and you have a smaller hole like this and you're struggling to thread that hole, try using a tooth flosser. What are they called? It's a flosser. It's a floss threader, basically. So just gonna cut that. And now this shouldn't be that hard because it's baker's twine, but if you were having an issue or if you have a smaller hole that you need to fill, just thread it on through. Now, I actually need mine to be like this, so I don't need that, but I did show it in my earlier version, and if you haven't heard of that trick, it is a great one. So this is another tedious job. I will speed my way through this as well. If you're wondering where the like smoky type background and the sentiment came from my sample card, it is from Artistically Inked, which I hadn't inked up yet, but I think this time we'll just use, we could leave it plain, or we'll use a sentiment stamp set. I want to keep these in order so that I don't mess them up when I go to adhere them. These tags are great for layering, but I love to use them on their own because they're not a layering die. Like, they don't line up. The holes will be at the top of each one, so it's not like you can have them nesting, but they are fantastic. I am obsessed. And if you are watching the NHL playoffs, leave me a comment below. Let me know which team you're rooting for. I live in Winnipeg, so of course I'm rooting for the Winnipeg Jets, but I'm also keeping a close eye on Toronto and Montreal. And if all goes well, I will have a fun video going live on Friday that is like sports related. So fingers crossed that it works. Okay, so I've got just a plain card base. And I think instead of doing this, let's just spritz a little bit of ink on the back so that we have something. So it's not just all white. I'm not pushing very hard. You can do this with Stampin' Write markers. You can also do it with Stampin' blends, which is something I hadn't tried until recently. But this will just break up all of that white and then just ring it around there. And I highly recommend dry fitting or auditioning your pieces so that you know where they are going to go. You don't want to have a ton of space on one side and none on the other. So I think we're pretty good here. And it would be cute if you had some letters on here to spell something out. And you could change the colors up for anything. I think this should be a great blank card, a great all occasion. You can see I've got a little bit of glue on there. So one of the tools that I tend to reach for almost every project that I create is my adhesive eraser. I just got this at the Dollar Tree. Love it. It's basically like the sole of a shoe. But if you have a little bit of liquid glue that sneaks out on you, it's a great remover. I don't want this to be predictable in how it's going. Like I don't want to have that one lined up like that. So maybe let's bring this one down a little more. I find that by putting them on an angle like this, it adds a little bit of whimsy. Bring some fun. I mean, a rainbow is going to be fun no matter what, right? A little bit of glue on here as well. And that just happened when I turned them over because I've got a little bit of glue that came off of the reinforcements. Okay, so for sentiment. So one of the new sentiment stamp sets is Through It Together, and it covers so many great things. I mean, there is sad, there's happy, there's support, there's a little bit of everything. So I think I really love this Sending You This Paper Hug. I did a card not too long ago. I'll link to that above. Maybe let's just do Hello Lovely. I also like this Don't Let Worry Spoil Your Happy. Let's go with Don't Let Worry Spoil Your Happy. It's a nice, fun, bubbly one. So you probably know that Itty Bitty Everything retired. Itty Bitty Greetings, Birthdays, Christmas. So I feel like this one kind of replaces the Itty Bitty collection a little bit. Not fully, but they are just itty bitty. So I'm going to use Smoky Slate. That's the color that I used on the background. It's also the color that I used on my sample earlier. And I feel like it lets the images shine. You can see I put my label on just a little bit crooked. So what I like to do before I stamp on my actual project is take a scrap, and I have one here from something. So because I put my sticker on a little bit crooked, I don't know if you can see that, but it overhangs a little bit on the top. So now I'm going to have to remember to compensate for that every time I use this, which really sucks, but practice on scrap paper and then you won't have to redo your project. I could have gone in an area that wasn't so saturated with dots. And if you weren't okay with this the way it is, what I would do is just take a black strip of cardstock and heat emboss it, but I think we're going to just stick with that. And we'll leave it blank on the inside. Okay, so let's call that done. Let me know in the comments below which one you prefer, whether you like my earlier iteration where I've got that like artistic alcohol / smoky background with the hello, and the crinkled seam binding ribbon, which I feel like it just distracts from everything else. Or if you like the plain, clean and simple baker's twine with a little sentiment at the bottom. Let me know what you like, which one you prefer. And if you need any of the products to make this or any other project making using Stampin' Up! Products and you're not already working with a demonstrator, I would be happy to earn your business. And I thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button. You'll catch a new video each and every week. And we'll see you again next week, my crafty friends. Bye.